to hear every single time
Hello,
the first time.
and welcome to Sugar, Silk and Stretch, a unique boxing podcast brought to you exclusively by Ace Podcast Nation. My name is Ben Doughty,
My name is Michael Silkolajide. And we Gary Stretch.
I'm Gary Stretch.
and collectively we are Sugar, Silk and Stretch. So, gentlemen, we were supposed to have a guest for the second week running in the form of David King Estrada, who sounds like he had an interesting career. He fought Shane Mosley and Andre Berto and Kermit Sintron, but it's fallen through again. So we're just going to chew the fat, fellas. You had
Hi,
Adrian Broner get
Keep going.
comprehensively beaten on
Okay, wait a
Friday
second.
night by Blair
Can I
Cobbs.
ask you something? Does the body look like that? This looks like it eats a lot of fat. I mean, come on, chew the fat.
No, it doesn't look like it eats a lot of fat at all. I mean, I've seen you eat chips, but even then you threw them away. So it's
Chips
obviously your
meaning,
secret, this silk
meaning
diet.
fries, meaning fries, right? Chips
Yeah,
meaning.
exactly. Yeah, we call them chips in England. You should understand. You should empathise with that.
I
because
do, I
that's-
do, I
this is
do.
why
Absolutely. Chip
your
butties,
mother must call them chips.
chip butties forever. Yeah.
Exactly that. So, but no. So Adrian Broner got. Do you know what I want to talk about, guys? Not so much the Broner fight with Blair Cobbs. For me, I don't know how you two feel about this, but as soon as Broner gets beat, every time he gets beat, and he was shot, not shot, but he was over the hump and not going to do what it looked like he was going to do several years ago, right? But
Mhm.
everybody says, "Oh, I'm so glad. Always beautiful to see that cocky bastard, humbled and all this." I'm not feeling that. I've got nothing against Adrian Broner. For me, it's too obvious to hate on someone like that and to
But you know
jeer.
what, Ben? What's really evident about Broner's career? He's not serious anymore. He spends his money, then he comes back and has a fight, and then goes and goes crazy, and then comes back and has a fight. It's like
Uh-huh.
it's almost like I'm happy that he can use the system and he's still got enough name power to get a payday, but he doesn't give a fuck. He's not a pro anymore. He's
Well,
a guy
$1.5
who's
million.
out of the game.
Say again?
$1.5 million. Dollars?
Is that
What
what he
about
got?
That's what I understand he got. That's what I read. 1.5
He-
million.
He may have done, Silk. Yeah, he may have done. I mean, obviously, it was a Don King promotion. And
Well, Don King
Oh,
never
yeah,
gave
right.
anybody $1.5 million, even if they were
I
contracted.
mean, he just shows up, he gets down, you can imagine he suffers through camp just to get there, does it, and then he's done now for a bit, and then he'll be back and they'll pay him again.
Well,
And I
you know
don't
what?
it's fine. It's a 1%er who can do that. I guess people want to see him get beat, but I like him. He's a character, but it's actually refreshing that someone can use the game rather than the game use him, because he's definitely just a part-time pro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
I remember him coming up and I admired his talent. And then he started to, I don't know what happened, if there was some psychological imbalance of he introduced ingredients into his diet, or it was some physical trauma that happened. And by the name of Maidana, that seemed to be
Yeah,
when the wheels
yeah.
fell off. And all of a sudden he just changed as an individual. Like I couldn't really look at him the same way as a professional fighter after the Maidana fight and the things he was saying and things he was doing. And I'm just like, wow, why does it have to be that way? And I guess it's one of those things. But some people are like, listen, I got to be me, and this is how I feel. I'm going to express myself. But sometimes you really do have to bite your tongue. It's very important. It's very important to have that skill,
Yeah.
that ability in this world.
He was,
And
he was
Go on,
very
Gary.
impressive at a certain point, and then as soon as he moved up in weight, everything seemed to go perfect.
And yet, you know what, gentlemen, and I know it's only a comment on the modern ecosystem in terms of proliferation of titles, but he's actually a 4-weight world champion. Now, when you think, right,
Oh, come
that
on.
in another era, like Michael's era when he was coming up, and your era when you were coming up, Gary, the guys who won 3 titles were guys like Benitez, Arguello, Barney Ross, Tony Canzaneri, and then Thomas Hearns and Sugar Ray Leonard. And then now you've got a guy who's won 4 world titles at different weights, and he will not get into the Hall of Fame even in the cheap seats. And people think of him as a kind of a failure, which is interesting, isn't it? I suppose.
I think
Yeah.
he failed his potential. I think he was potentially amazing if he would have been disciplined.
Yeah, I
But
agree with you because
I think
yeah,
I think he let himself down, and he's still done very well, I guess, financially, which is great. But
evening, Sean.
because he became the wrestling villain, didn't he, Gary? He became that guy with the almost with the hooded claw in the mask who people booed at. That's why I can't join the terrorist chants against Broner when he gets beat. It's too, if I'm gonna dislike someone, it's gonna have to be something more outside the box than that. You know what I mean?
Well, I'll tell you what he does. He always comes to fight. He's got a big heart, and
yeah,
he never comes to lay down. But I just
when he got knocked down, he lost his tooth. That says a lot. He's trying to pick
what
up
does it say, Silk?
Sorry?
What does it say? You say it says a lot. What does it say, Silk?
Well, I think it says, like, instinctually, look, he's a fighter. He obviously has ability, and you can never take that ability away from him, but he just cannot perform at the level anymore, and you can't see that. And no one's going to tell him that. And, one, he's a meal ticket for some. For others, he's, they look up to him, and he's their only connect into a legitimate professional world kind of thing. Like, the only thing that's going to bring in that, he gets a certain respect when he goes to places still. And I'm sure until he acts up, he gets into whatever place he needs to get into. So socially, he's accepted in a lot of places, and people are impressed by that. Oh my God, there's Broner, and everyone, you have 100 people creating a line for him, waiting to shake his hand or just see him. So one way he can go one way or the other, and the easier way he goes, he still gets the same recognition.
And you know what? Half of these people who say, he's a clown, he's a bum, he's an imbecile, I can't stand him. If they saw him at a show, especially if he rolled up at York Hall or something, they'd be like, wow, that's Adrian Broner. Let's get a selfie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's one of the few celebrities that he's a character. He beats at his own drum, and he can fight. And no matter Broner at his worst, he give anyone a bit of trouble. Do you know what I mean? If you're going to get rid of him, you've got to work him out, because he's still, like, even this fight, he was like walking the guy down, and he was it was no easy fight for the guy.
No,
they moved to him and Conor Bennett at one point.
The kid couldn't pull the trigger at all. I mean, Broner couldn't pull the trigger at all, and that's when things are starting to come undone. Like, it's going to get worse. It's never going to get better. It's only going to get worse from that one form. So now he has to be more vigilant, or his people have to be more vigilant than ever. And I don't know it's not my business what he's done financially or professionally, whatever it is. I don't know. But what comes after this can be really, really ugly if he doesn't have his stuff together.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for him, and it's always been, is him. And I think he is a talent. He's proven it. His record shows it, but I think his discipline and his dedication is lacking, and I think he's done very well for the amount of commitment he's given to the sport. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But that's based on a very talented kid. He is a talent. I mean, early Broner was amazing.
He was incredible. I mean, we were talking about. I remember beforehand, and we were talking like you were comparing him and Mayweather. And I was actually saying, well, like I like his entertainment value even more than I like Mayweather's. Mayweather's playing it safe for the first 4 or 5 rounds, then he takes it to you. This kid out the bell from the jump was really nice with his hands and being able to throw everything, but he just wasn't able to maintain the consistency. Obviously when the level stepped up, that stress kind of got to him, broke that mental.
I think it just shows the discipline and the results that you get when you're Floyd and you put it. I mean, Floyd has been a workaholic his whole life, and love him or hate him. I mean, I'm a big fan.
That's a strong claim. Yeah,
he's just, his level of commitment over so long has been extraordinary.
Yeah, that's amazing.
You put the work in,
and I think there's been a few Floyd potentially heir apparents or imitators over the last several years that the one thing they missed about Floyd was the work ethic and the dedication.
Never drinks, never drugs, you know what I mean? Never, very disciplined. He has his own style of training. He trains all hours of the day, but he's actually turned training on its head. But
I don't think there's been any fighter that I can remember that is that dedicated to not losing, to always winning. Like he just never drops the ball. Never.
And it just shows. It's like he trains all hours of the day, he does his own thing. But what he does do is live boxing.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. He's just full time on. He's full time on. He spar at 3 a.m, runs at 5, sleeps all day, does everything that you shouldn't do. But what he does do is he wakes up and he lives boxing, and that's his job. Like he goes to he has this club, this strip club. I've seen him in the club, and he
Girl
leaves.
collection.
Well, yeah, and he leaves, and then he's on the road. You know, he's
Yeah.
a madman. He leaves the club, gets in the car, and runs 8 miles. You know what I mean?
People have told me he's taken a blazer off at a function and then gone for a run and ran home, you know, as he is, just because he thinks it's time to do road work. And I've just left this gala affair. I'll just take this off and hit the street, you know.
I like that because that tells you something about like his instincts. It tells you about a fight. Like you're not doing the conventional thing that everyone else does. In order to excel, in order to become great in boxing, you have to do something different. If you're doing something everyone else does, people adjust to it, they adapt to it, and they get rid of you easy. But when you do something exceptional, and even some people may call crazy, well, that's not the conventional thing. We only run at 6 a.m. We only spar until like the last 2 weeks of the fight or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. Then we
got to get rid of that kind of stuff. If you want to be great in boxing, if you want to excel, if you truly want to become the best, and not just a champion, but
different.
on that, you need to do it different. There's absolutely no way.
And then what he does is 24-hour boxing. That's his life.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're talking about him as if he's still active, Gary. I mean, there must be a degree of
he still may well be, knowing Floyd.
Yeah, I hear you. He's still doing his thing, isn't he?
He would still beat most of them. But yeah, I mean, he's done what he's done. But I mean, what it is, it's just a simple fact is that whilst he was in the sport, he just lived the game 24/7, and that means because we all, you know, I mean, what's interesting, we all get ready 8-week, 10-week camp. Floyd never changes. He's just he was just trained all the time.
Yeah.
When he was off trained, when he was on, he just sparred, and he had these mad fights in the gym. It was like he never got out of the street of it. Like he was in the mix with the boys 24/7. He was always on his toes because everyone wants to beat him. So he's never lost his edge, you know. He's been around it. He's had the people around him. He's got his gym. He's got the people. He's constantly. You can imagine he's the man, but everyone's trying to beat him. Every spar, everything he does, everyone's trying to get one over on him. So he never lost the edge, and he just lived it, and then you can.
Having said that, Sugar Ray no, Hearns no, Duran no, does not beat them.
Hagler did. Hagler. Well, do you know what? You'd say Hagler was the Spartan, totally dedicated guy, but people who were close to him told me that Marvin drank and snorted coke when he wasn't, and Marvin did like to party. And you'd never think that, but people I trust too much have told me that he did.
Yeah.
You'd never think Ray Leonard, but even though,
but I would because I heard about it.
You would think Ray Leonard.
Yeah, I mean, we know Ray was into all that, when I look at Ray and I see him talk today, I know he's in the recovery circles as well. I know he goes to AA and things like that. And to me, he seems like somebody who's like an identity blueprint, alcoholic addict type person. I can see that now with what I know today, being one myself as well. But what was I going to say? One man who also didn't espouse the kind of monastic way of life was Ricky Hatton. And the reason I mention him was right about now, I would imagine, or perhaps it's already happened, he's getting inducted into the Hall of Fame, you know, the boxing's highest chamber of honor. Huh?
He's in already because there's a photo of him with his picture right next to.
There is, but I'm saying, but that doesn't mean he's necessarily gone up to the steps yet. Do you know what I mean? The actual induction ceremony where you get on the.
Well, he was in the place, commenting on.
He's been there all weekend. He's been there all weekend. Yeah, I know.
Yes, yeah. So I mean, his photo's in there. You don't get in there unless you're in there, right?
He's definitely been inducted today, but I don't know if he's actually had his acceptance speech yet. What time is it in New York right now, Michael? It must be about
4:20.
He either has had, he might have done his speech already, but regardless of that, I think it's hard to look at the picture of Ricky in there when he's saying, "I'm just 2 feet away from Roberto." It's hard not to feel glad for him and think, "Well done." Personally, I'm not sure if I'd have voted for him myself, but you know what? I think with the Hall of Fame, they kind of
what's his
the bar. Why? What does he have to do to get in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I was just about to say that's exactly what I was asking. Like, what has he done in terms of world title defenses?
Well, you want to talk about defenses, or do you want to talk about opposition? Because at defenses, he didn't have a whole lot.
Yeah,
how many weight classes?
Important. You just can't put any world champion in there, right? If you win the world title, doesn't mean you're automatically in the Hall of Fame.
the way I like to think of it, Silk and Gary, is I look at the best wins a fighter had, and you can normally isolate, except for extraordinary figures, you can normally
Well,
isolate three.
Costa Zoo at the time was unbeatable.
I was getting to that, Gary. I'm saying I usually isolate 3 to 5 you normally have, which you consider somebody's major wins in a career, right? Sometimes somebody has more than that because they have such an illustrious career. But with Hatton, I would say his 3 major, but his best wins probably would be Kostya Tszyu, maybe Paul Malignaggi, and Jose Luis Castillo. That would be the 3. I don't think there's anything he did pre-title which would qualify any kind of canastota enshrinement.
He won a couple of weight categories, right?
He won a version of the welterweight title against Luis Collazo. Yeah, it struggled against him and just about squeaked home against Luis Collazo. Yes,
he's a 2-weight world champion and total defenses.
But Broner is a 4-weight world champion and he's never getting in if there's a god. Yeah, true.
Yeah. I mean, I personally, I wouldn't have inducted Ricky into. I mean, I really like him, and he's
I'm not
really
begrudging him, Gary, but
fighter and everything. But if we're talking about, and we were talking about this a little bit, Ben, before we came on air, and that was they do too much, at the Hall of Fame. From what I can see, is like they try to induct too many guys. Boxing doesn't have that many like basketball, like football.
I think we're missing something. I think the Hall of Fame indicates that someone did something that was a little bit more than boxing, right? So, as you say,
I don't interpret it that way, but some people.
You're an exceptional boxer. You're beyond the average.
I don't think it's about fame. Otherwise, Frank Bruno could get in, maybe, Gary.
No, I think that Ricky in his prime, in his best, in his heyday, he lit up a nation. He beat the best at the time, which was Costa Tszyu, who was was seemingly unbeatable at the time. I remember the fight; he was not a favorite. And then he went on. He won another weight division. How many world title wins did he have, Ben? About 8 or 10?
I'll break it down for you in a second. Off my memory.
Ben, even before we go there, sometimes I think what we do is on the other side of it. Sometimes because there are so many titles available, when a person does make that jump and win 2, we tend to downplay it because it's like, oh, they're just all over the place. You can get another title fight anywhere. So sometimes you tend to like. I can see how I hear.
Yeah. But Gary, what I was going to say, when you say Kostya Tszyu, I mean, Kostya Tszyu was the man and he was a legitimate world champ, by beating that man, regardless of who else held a belt. I don't have a problem with that. But when you say he was unbeatable or seen that way at the time, people knew he was at the end of a long career, never fought again, and he'd already been beat by Vince Phillips quite conclusively a few years before. So it wasn't like he was unbeatable per se. He was very formidable. And he was the man, and Ricky took it from him and became the man. I don't have an issue with that. But
I think he deserves it 10 times. I think he's a great man. I think he did great for the sport, great ambassador. I don't
doubt any of that.
I just think, you know what? I'm sure there's lesser men in there.
Oh, absolutely, Gary. We could have that conversation too. As I say, I don't have a strong view on it. I'm happy for him. I posted the picture of him with Duran today saying I'm 2 feet away from Roberto on the wall. And when a few people on my thread tried to say, I don't think he really belongs, I said, well, this wasn't what the post was about. It's a good, feel-good post and well done to him. I don't have an issue with your support of his induction. If I had a vote on the ballot, I probably wouldn't have voted for him. But that's only me, isn't it? I mean, that you would have done, Silk might not have done. I guess to be honest, don't take any notes of me, Gary.
Would you vote Anthony Joshua in?
Are you sorry? What did you just say?
Say again. Would you vote Anthony Joshua in?
Well, first of all, he needs to be retired for 5 years, or I think they've changed it to 3, which is.
We understand that. No. At this present career record, would you put him in the Hall of Fame?
Not in a million years, right now.
Okay.
Not in a million years.
Would you Tyson Fury?
That's an interesting question, which I will. Honest, I'm not being awkward. I will evaluate that closer to the time when the dust has settled and he's retired and he's done what he's going to do. I know it's not much of an answer.
I don't think it's going to get better for him now. That's for sure.
I hear what you're saying, Silk. You say judge him on what he's done now because he hasn't got any. He hasn't got the best of his resume yet to come. I just don't like to. I don't like to make the call. Ask me about fighters who are retired who are not in.
I think Tyson Fury's going to earn his Hall of Fame the next fight. I think he's going to show everybody that he is what he's supposed to be. I think he lost his way a little mentally, and the all of the madness. And I think it will be a great achievement if he can go and humble himself, get to the place, clean up the team a bit, get the core people as necessary, go to a Rocky in the mountains, no fucking around, come back, do it, and then retire. And that would for me give him all the credence in the world. And I think he has the character to do it. I think
I think you'd have to put him in there after that, to be honest with you. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
well, I think he's going to get in, because who else could you put in for the time that he was champion, that he was around, that he's been fighting? Like, you're going to have what, a 15-year gap or so of like nobody getting in?
I mean,
you mean in the heavyweight division, right?
In the heavyweight division, yes.
It's sad the way that Wilder is now. You know, it diminishes the Fury wins because he looks like a very, incomplete, below average fighter, Wilder, without the right hand. But I mean, 43 knockouts is not lucky. You know what I mean? So
that's what I was trying to tell you guys last week, Gary, when I said he's gotten a little old. I know he's fundamentally woeful in certain ways, and he always has been, but he has gotten older, and he's definitely less the fighter than he used to be. But you guys, it felt like you guys weren't having it last week when I said,
yeah, I'm not
allowed to get old.
When Fury took him on, no one would take him on, and that's a massive, because you've got to understand the boxing game. Okay, so it's like Mike Tyson had the Deontay Wilder mystique. There's a lot of these knockout merchants. It does affect a fighter when they fight him, because a lot of people freeze. A lot of people are afraid to pull the trigger in case they get caught. It's a big achievement when you can go and beat the guy, be the first to do it.
I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with Deontay Wilder. I have a problem with his opponents. That's always been my issue. I have if he can beat guys that I thought were worthy of like being number one contender in the world, or even in the top 10. If I saw these guys with ability and I was like, wow, and he knocked this guy out, I'd be like, okay, I understand what you're talking about.
What are Wilder's best wins? To play that game, what are Wilder's 3 best wins, could we say?
Ortiz? Who's not really, again, he's just
against Ortiz. It might need both of them, might be, Gary.
And Ortiz hasn't really done much, has he?
No. Who else then, Gary? Who else? I mean,
I don't know. That's the problem.
It's hard, isn't it? I mean, if he'd have beat Fury,
I understand that. I'm not rallying on that one. And what I'm saying is the myth around him and the fear factor around him. It takes a certain, it's hard to be the one to break the mold, and he did it. No one was jumping to fight him. I know Joshua was avoiding him to some degree, although I believe Joshua didn't avoid him out of fear. I believe the business wasn't right or the situation, but no one was jumping to fight Wilder when Fury did it. He went across the pond to fight Klitschko and beat him in his back garden. He did the same with Wilder. Who else did he? He's beat a lot of good fighters, Fury, or decent fighters. It's tough because some of these Hall of Famers, they proved their worth, but they were at a time when there was amazing fighters to beat. And, Fury can only beat who's around, and he's pretty much beat everyone.
So then maybe that's what needs to be done. Maybe there needs to be like a platform, like, okay, Sugar Ray Robinson was the greatest, but he fought at this time because he fought these guys, and his platform is an A platform. These other guys that are getting in, this is when boxing was at a B platform or C platform, and he's in because he did this with the C platform fighters or something. I mean, but there has to be some sort of like acknowledgement because they're just not the same.
You can get into that
Hall of Fame, Silk.
You can get into that. You can get into that argument, but then you can make the next argument, which would be put Lennox Lewis in the Muhammad Ali era when the heavyweights were half his size, and
but size.
That's a bit of exaggeration.
No, I know, but I mean, I think Lennox stands up in any era in his prime.
Oh, of course,
I think so. I think
if Douglas has the ability to beat Tyson, whether Tyson was on or off, I know Lennox Lewis would have beat Buster Douglas 7 days a week and twice on Sunday.
Absolutely, no question, and it doesn't matter what Douglas. What empowered him that particular time? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, Lennox would have beat Douglas with his eyes closed, as would many others.
You saw what Holyfield did,
Yeah, and so
I mean,
it's
I remember seeing Buster against what's his name? Oh man, he was just on the tip of my tongue. He fought
Mike Williams.
Tony Tucker,
Tony Tucker, yeah.
and Tony Tucker was nuts.
I mean, the reality is it's like runners, okay? You could say Steve Ovitz, Sebastian Coe, you know these guys, Ben.
Mhm.
Yes, yeah.
You can look at these legends, but then you look at the numbers, and guys I've never heard of are doing faster times now. So, you know, like you can only be as good as your time. And in that time, and you can only beat whoever's around. And there's been no one really that Fury hasn't beat other than Wilder, which is other than who? Joshua.
Usyk and Joshua.
Usyk and Joshua, but Fury's, you know, but Fury's beat. Well, has he beat anyone who beat Joshua? No, he hasn't, has he?
Let me think about that one, Gary.
He would have been.
No.
He would have been on Usyk.
No, because he hasn't fought Ruiz, and Joshua's lost to Ruiz and Usyk. But you know, I think let's be honest. This is what I think.
Let me ask you guys a question. Change the subject.
Go
Okay, you can have just both of you. I would love to know your answer. Forget Adam all. Who now, and take Usyk out of the equation, who other than Usyk right now is the best heavyweight in the world for you? Ben?
Except in Usyk, I'd say it's Tyson Fury.
Really? Nah, I mean,
yeah.
Why?
Because
so you think the rating should be Usyk, then Tyson Fury, then I mean, I think
the rankings, absolutely.
Not on the strength of his knockout, over the kickboxer guy, the UFC kid, Ngannou. I think Joshua is the better fighter.
I've never thought that, and I'm not going to think it just because it's a little bit more fashionable of late. I'm not accusing you of it being that kind of calculation, but I've always thought Fury would beat Joshua. I've always thought he was a better fighter who's beat better opposition for the most part.
I didn't think so.
I've always thought he matches up better. Get 10 heavyweights from the past or today, and I think Fury does better than Joshua.
Now, one thing Fury was able to do, and that was. We've always talked about size, weight, all of us, that kind of stuff. But when a guy is using boxing, shouldn't be like weight advantages shouldn't make a difference in boxing. What should make a difference is like the skills. And when you match up,
skills pay the bills. I'm getting my coffee. Stay there.
All right. And when you get Fury and him together, there's no way that Joshua couldn't beat him. Because he has the range. He could fight him at range. He could fight him in close. There's no way that Fury's going to be laying on his body weight on him without Joshua throwing him off. I don't see how technically that's a fight.
Joshua appears to have gotten an awful lot of props off the back of stopping Otto Wallin and knocking out Francis Ngannou. That has really turned things around. If you looked at you had the fights at Usyk. Okay, he did a little better in the rematch, but he was still beaten fair and square, and he was beat by a mile the first time. You had the thing where he got knocked out by Andy Ruiz, and he showed all kinds of distress signals. Then he looked pretty terrible against Jermaine Franklin and Robert Helenius, to be honest with you. But he got the job done, you know, against Helenius eventually. Went the distance with Franklin. Then he looked good, and people are spinning this Ben Davidson, the miracle worker narrative too. I like Ben a lot, by the way. Good coach, very dedicated guy. But I don't believe in the mythology of the training the way that some people seem to. And suddenly Joshua is the next coming of whomever, George Foreman or whatever, when I just don't see it that way.
No,
I don't think Fury beat him.
I think with the fight game, it's all a mental game. And I think Joshua right now is in a great space, and Ben has got a lot to do with that. And I think that's to do with when you're that kind of a heavyweight and you move into different, you have a few issues in your career, which he had, whatever they may be, with the loss to Ruiz. But when you start going to other trainers across the water and new techniques and new this, I don't think it works that well when you feel and he's training with all these amazing fighters, Spence and all these guys. I don't think it's great for your confidence. And I think sometimes it's better to be a big fish in a little pond and get your confidence back. And I think Ben is in, and I think the losses, and I think have done. I think Josh is one of the few fighters who can take a loss and learn from it. A lot of them get destroyed by it. I think he's one of these guys who can look at his life, I think for the first time, I feel like he's doing it for himself. You know, he had a lot of pressure coming up with all the victories and all the success and all the expectations of him. And now this kind of the pressure's been taken off him, and he's quietly come back to better than ever. Now they're all behind him. But I think it's plaudits to him. I think his mind's in the right place. I think that's always been an issue with him. And I think now it's a great space. I think he's going to be difficult.
I think he's got a great backing behind him in Eddie Hearn myself. I think that's the one foundation that's been consistent all the way through. And when you have a promoter that believes in you still, right? You have a promoter that believes in you. He's willing to give you whatever you need and make sure it happens for you to get back to that place. I mean, I know
think that is important, Silk. Yeah,
that's extremely important. Once they put you on that tight wire, and it feels like, well, if you lose your next fight, we're kicking you to the curb, or you're done, or whatever. He's like, no, he lost his fight as bad as he may have lost the Ruiz fight. Eddie Hearn was like, okay, let me take you under my wing. What do you need? What can I help you with? He made everything from what I've read. It may be different technically, but from what I understand, he
loyalty.
Made very, very well. The loyalty was there. And you cannot beat that in a fighter. When you get that from your management, when you get that from your promotion, they believe in you no matter what.
Come on,
you know
this
that.
This is not the case with Eddie Hearn. The case
go
with
on,
Eddie
go
Hearn,
on, Gary.
The case with Eddie Hearn is, trust me, at no stage ever was Joshua not the golden goose for Eddie Hearn.
Oh, of course, yes.
Even though he lost, the comeback's going to be bigger than ever. It's Joshua. Eddie Hearn didn't hang in with him. He fucking continued to make millions.
Did what anyone would do.
Anyone. No one's letting Joshua go with one silly defeat. He's going to bring him back. And that's a huge fight. I mean, stuck by who? He stuck by the guy who gave him all the fucking money he's got, a lot of it. He's his golden ticket. So I think Eddie Hearn's a good promoter. Great. But he's not he didn't do no special thing with Joshua. He made a fortune and continues to.
Of course, he
Eddie Hearn, he was wild as
money making. He sees him as a money making. Yes, he sees him as the golden goose. I absolutely understand that. What I'm saying is, what happens when people see you lose for the first time? They think, okay, the precipitation is starting now. It's starting to rain. It's not going to get any better, and this is what's going to happen. But he didn't. He stayed with him, and that's just so rare. And I'm not just talking about he physically stayed with him because of money's there.
Of
course, he's going to ride it until the wheels fall off. But I'm saying is psychologically, it appears to me that he gave this guy what he needed. Like anything he needed, he was there to help with him. And that's legitimate. Like their friendship, when I see them on camera, that seems real to me.
I think it is. I think you're right.
I'll tell you something, what's going to happen next. Mark my words. If Wilder comes back, which I hope he doesn't, but if he does, it'll be with Eddie Hearn. Now, Eddie Hearn was up Wilder's arse before the fight because he thinks he's going to go with me next. I'm going to make a fucking fortune. But he got beat. Eddie said on camera, I wish him all the best now. But he said it in a way in which he left it out there because Wilder can still earn him a lot of fucking money.
And so Joshua.
I don't think he can.
Or whatever. Now, if he promotes Wilder next, it's not because he's a super saint and he's supporting this broken man. He's taking the fucking biggest,
see the upside,
most entertaining heavyweight in the last 50 years. One way or the other, it's drama with
50. Wilder.
And he's going to make a lot of money. And he's not because he's an angel and a supportive man. It's because he's a fucking businessman. And good luck to Eddie. It's fine. But I do believe the same with Joshua. And I also believe
he doesn't have the same. He doesn't have the
same. I
also
believe that promoters are not monsters. You know, they do become friends of fighters. And if your friend loses, you're going to back him, even if he's not going to make it again. I would hope. So I understand your comment, but I don't think there's much behind it. I think he's a businessman. He's not going to leave Joshua. He'd be a fucking dog if you left him after one loss. Give me a break. Look, this is
Well,
the difference.
We're talking
he had
three
one
now.
loss, but he
3
had,
losses.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it was like they were all they was back, and then it was up and down. It wasn't like a Wilder defeat.
And that's
It was
just
not.
it. That's exactly what I'm saying. He was vacillating, which is, we had
The
to
word
talk
that you
about
educated
earlier.
on me earlier. Yeah.
Yes, okay, but
He's a businessman, and I'm sure he's become Joshua's friend. But Joshua still and will remain to be the golden ticket for Eddie Hearn. Period.
but only because of the union. And you're saying he would have just let him go anyway. Sometimes you
No,
don't.
he should. I would never have let Joshua go. If I miss promoter, he has a loss, but it was a close
It's
loss.
not easy building somebody back up again after the kind of loss that and the kind of doubt that he was showing in the ring.
Joshua has such a backing from the British fans and the world. He's the most charismatic, best looking fucking guy. Got everything.
Everyone has their enemies, and everyone has their
He's a promoter's dream, even when he loses. The Rocky story, he'll come back. He's got so much charisma. I mean, plaudits to Eddie, stuck by him, but it wasn't for free. I promise you, he made a fucking fortune and continues to.
And also, Gary, just for the
And
sake
I
of
believe,
balance, Gary.
and I believe that Eddie's under the same thinking as me and many others. That Joshua's biggest problem was the mental thing, and they found a way to get him comfortable and strong and mentally. And I think he's now going to have another.
That's what I'm saying. That's all a part of the thanks to Eddie Hearn. He didn't just play the promoter. He didn't just put up the money and get the fight there. He was a friend with him, and that's the point that I'm trying to make. He was a friend.
There used to be these memes around Silk.
Very few fighters get that from promoters. I don't care who it is.
There used to be this meme doing the rounds, okay, Silk, after the Ruiz rematch. And it was a picture of Joshua getting interviewed in the ring after beating Ruiz, by way of revenge. And there was Eddie looking on the scene. And the caption was, "If my girl don't look at me the way Eddie looks at AJ, I don't want it."
Exactly. It's so true. I mean, I think that's beautiful. In terms of relationships and what happens with fighters, I think that's really, I'm up for that.
I actually think Frank Warren of the two promoters is the most loyal. As much as I've had issues with him, I think he's the most loyal. If you're his friend, I think he truly would stick his neck out for a friend. I think he's a much more solid guy than Hearn. I think Hearn he runs with the hare, hunts with the hound. I think Frank is a solid.
What did you say? Runs with the hare and runs with the hound.
Hunts with the hound. In the English, you can't run with the hare and hunt with the hound. You've got to pick one. I think Frank Warren's old school. I think he's a good friend to people, and I think if he's got your back, he's got your back. And I think Hearn. I don't think Hearn is the same caliber of man as Frank Warren. That's me. Good promoter. But if I had to rely on,
but he's true. I mean, he likes what he likes, and there's something about Joshua that he really likes.
What's not to like? I'm asking.
What's not
you
to
said?
Like?
He's incredible. He's an amazing ambassador. He's an amazing fighter. He's a great fucking looking guy. He's got a great personality. He's a commodity that is an incredible item to have on your
roster.
100%. So
Tip Boggle wants to know, does Gary think Joshua is on the juice? Bit controversial. I'm reading it out because a fan asked you a question.
I don't know. I think I would probably doubt it. I would say he's probably, if there is a juice that they're all taking, that is a supplement that they're all on, because of the sport now and the amount of money involved, everyone's trying to get an edge. If there's something, obviously people keep getting caught. I think all the athletes are taking every advantage they can as legally as they can. I think Joshua's not a cheat. No, I think he's probably doing it the right way. If there are supplements that they can take that may be on the edge, I think he probably was the kind of guy who might. But I think
we always have to say no until it's proven yes.
I would say Joshua, if I had to stick my neck out, is no. I think he's
talking of pets. Did you hear about Ryan Garcia last night in Beverly Hills?
Yeah.
He got arrested
for what?
for causing damage at this. What was the hotel called? It was
The
in Beverly
hotel,
Hills. It was a
Beverly Hills
hotel.
Hotel, for lack of a better name.
Yeah, they said he did 15 grand worth of damage, which, as Mike Steichen pointed out, that might mean he just dropped an ashtray in Beverly Hills. but you know, but no, Gary, he's complaining he's not been paid by Golden Boy, and so has Haney been complaining the same. They've all said that they haven't been given the money they were supposed to get.
But that's not how it works, from what I understand. Like when they do pay-per-view, you get paid for the gate, and then you get paid as money comes in increments. And
exactly
so these guys
that.
are jumping the gun a little bit. You know.
But either way, he was complaining and smashing up the place supposedly, and he got nicked. He's been released now, but
let me ask you this: you say you get paid in increments. Trust me, the business has been done already.
Why? But it takes time for businesses to make. They have to count. They have to make a count. They have to get it from their account and transfer it to yours. And it's not as simple as just writing a check and going already.
Quite enough time to do that.
I suppose you have to work with the cable companies and understand what comes back there. I mean, I don't know how
you have the fight. They have the numbers. They've took the receipts. It takes a guy a day to sit down and count it up and pay you. That's it.
Okay, and then people need to have their cards charged and all the rest of that kind of stuff.
Some people have been charged before they get fucking the fight.
No, they get the fight. They get.
No, your credit card. You don't get the fight and not charge a card. It's paid.
No, they charge the card immediately, right? So by the time the fight's over, that's gone through. But I'm sure there's the technical.
Yeah, but this is
supposedly Golden Boy said they get paid a certain amount. Apparently, it takes 90 days or something for them to get paid everything. Also, don't quote me, but it was. I remember Rick Glazer on Twitter. Okay, who's very much into the whole business side of things. He's kind of a controversial figure, but some of his posts are worth reading. He said it hasn't even been 45 days yet, so they need to read their contracts and they need to understand how this works. So there is apparently something in it, Gary. From what I'm not an expert in that area.
I think Dana White beats them all, and I think you never hear. I mean, you hear complaints of the deals, but like they all get paid. He throws bonuses left, right, and center.
I have not heard that. It may be true.
But I've never heard a bad word about Dana not paying people. I think he overpays. UFC
fighters get paid less than professional boxers. If you
can, we know that. But that's
there's no other conversation here. If you look, they have UFC on TV making money year round in different parts of the world. For a UFC fighter to be making less than a professional boxer.
But hang on. I
didn't even know you can make less than a professional boxer.
Hang on, that's not true. In the Mayweathers, yes. Generally, if you're a UFC fighter, the amount of perks they get from everything, from medical to they get so much shit as well as get paid. Like they
get medical because they get fucked up for doing what they're doing. So
they have a whole package with UFC where the lives are pretty much helped in a great deal. They get maybe less per fight, but they have much more credentials and much more things given to them that the average fighter doesn't get. So sure, it's a younger sport.
You're saying like life insurance, health insurance.
You get all kinds of health. Dana's a fucking good guy, I tell you. He looks after his guys.
Yeah, I understand that, but if you're telling me they get life insurance and health insurance, then I would love to know about that.
They get so many perks on the outs and everything covered, and for friends and family flown in. They take private planes, they fly them all over the world. They look after these guys that you won't believe. And they pay them well, and they give them bonuses, and they get deals with different sponsors. And like they have a whole structural thing that the athlete comes out very well. Not with boxers, it's an isolated purse in, out, done. And unless you have a team around you that you build, but it's not Barry Hearn's team. Joshua's got his own agencies, he's got his own agents, he's got his publicists, he's got his different people, sponsors. He's got a whole team that he's paying to do that. Barry Hearn's not paying for that. Joshua's paying for that. With the UFC, they give a much more padded package, so you get a basic, better standard of living, and they try to look after you after the fact, generally, unless there's disputes, which there are with everybody. But they get a much more rounded deal, and of course, and they should get less money than boxers. It's a younger sport.
I don't know. I don't know. I I can't rebut that because I don't understand how
They get so many
I
things.
understand from the boxers. I understand what boxers get from their perspective, but I do not understand the W thing.
The fight game,
UFC.
as you know it. The fight game, as you know
UFC.
it. You turn pro, you fight for nothing, you win a few belts, British this, you still got no money. You get the one good big shot at the title. If you lose it, you fucking want to retire.
Yeah.
UFC, they've got 6-8 losses and they're still best in the world. I mean, it's a whole different mindset. All Dana White wants out of his fighters is you give a good account of yourself.
Yep, I believe that.
When you lose, it doesn't mean nothing. McGregor lost how many times? McGregor's lost his last, I don't know how many fights. Dustin Poirier, all these guys lost so many fights, they're still making money for the UFC.
Except for John Jones.
Loss. If they fight well, they get paid again.
But Sid Bogle just mentioned, obviously, the Saudi Arabian kind of phenomenon has changed things a little bit of late, at least. And it's going to be an interesting couple of years, isn't it, to see how it develops and how the whole situation solidifies.
You mean with this team boxing thing?
No, just I mean, listen. That was the one time they've done that. I'm talking about all the crazy money they're throwing at the sport, and they put loads of big shows together.
They're paying a lot to become players, and they have the money to do that. But I think at one point they're going to have to start plugging the holes because you can't keep leaking like that. And it's just not happening.
There's a much bigger picture. Saudi Arabia is trying to do this for tourism, not for boxing.
Yeah, I believe that.
They're making this the next Dubai, the next, they were going to make this a place everyone wants to go.
Las Vegas, the whole thing.
And you know, I heard, although they did 1.5 million pay-per-view buys for Fury Usyk or thereabouts, supposedly, I was just reading an article and it was saying that he still lost a load of money on that show.
Which one? The last show?
Fury Usyk.
But
yeah, how could you not lose money? I mean, for one, you're flying at least 50, if not 100 fighters of name and notoriety out to the event, right? And they're not paying for their ticket, and they're not paying for the room, and they're not paying for their flight. Plus, they're getting paid money to be there, and that's up in the thousands. I mean, where does the money come from? It's absolutely all an investment right now for them. They can call it an investment, but it's, maybe they can write it off. I don't know what taxes are over there and how they do them, but I don't think that's why money's of no concern. The king of Saudi Arabia or whoever it is, the prince, you know what I mean? They have an open checkbook.
Yeah, they've got so much money, and what they're doing now. I mean, who knew about Saudi Arabia a year ago, 2 years ago? Now it's the biggest publicized country, and they're doing developments, and it's becoming a place that people are going to go.
It looks amazing.
They're doing it. Yeah, it's amazing. They're doing this to promote the country, and in the big scheme of things, they'll get the money back with tourism and people
down the road.
Just imagine the amount of people who've been in and out of the hotels.
And all I'm saying is, but at some point they're going to turn that faucet off, and because they know they can't continue to spend at that rate. So what is that? What is that cutoff amount? How close are we getting to it?
Because now.
Yeah. Was it Lester Bedford who said to us, Silk, there is no long game when you're doing stupid things?
I don't think they are. I think they're promoting the country, and you can't get better promotion than what they're doing. And I think eventually, like Silk says, it will lean down once they don't need it so much. Once they get this, once they get the country where it needs to be, then the prices and purses and things will probably get more realistic. But right now, they're promoting the country, and there's nothing better than what they're doing. They're doing an amazing job.
Yeah, they get it all over the world, and they get it in everyone's, they put it in everyone's lap that you wouldn't assume. They couldn't do it anywhere else.
No, the Saudi pockets are very deep. And
what you mean they couldn't do it anywhere else but Saudi Arabia, Michael?
No, they couldn't do it anywhere else but with the boxing media. Like boxing
I get you.
You know what I mean? Gets them everywhere. Gets the ears and the eyes that they need.
Did you see Carl Froch the other day, Gary? And he was sounding off, saying everybody, like basically what Sid Bogle just said, the British media are fawning all over the Saudis. No one will call a spade or call it out or say the atmosphere's or anything like that. So, sorry, all right. That was an old...
I take an exception to that one.
I'm surprised you even know that. Well, I'm not surprised you know that old school pejorative, that old school 1970s pejorative for a gentleman of Afro-Caribbean descent. Yes, sorry. We won't
Let me just tell you
praise-
something. I like Carl Froch in many things he does, and some things
Yeah.
he's a bit up his own arse. We know that he's got a big ego, but you have to be honest, and this is the magic of England and even Las Vegas. There's nowhere in the world an atmosphere like Wembley with 100,000 people. Just, I don't care where you go, before Saudi, after Saudi. There's nothing like these fights that we have in England. The fans are amazing. You know, it's fucking, it's the life. So, and boxing started in in our country, I do believe.
Yes,
And
1719. It's
yes, and so there's never going to be atmospheres like there are in England, anywhere in the world. Vegas has come close, but 9 times out of 10, it's when an English guy's there and they're fighting fucking, all the English go over, and it's insane.
They don't do atmosphere like we do. I remember even at Lewis Holyfield won, and Steve Varhood said, "Welcome to Wembley Stadium. This is like being in a stadium with 10,000 rabid dogs." It's a bit alien to the Americans, that kind of atmosphere that we.
Oh, I don't know, guys.
No, I mean the Americans have a different. It's a different
Ali
mentality.
won. Roberto Duran versus Davey Moore.
Yeah, but
Okay, but they're not Americans. They're Hispanics.
But Silk, it's a different thing. It's like
They're
the
Latin
football
Americans.
game.
They're Americans. They're Latins that live in America.
It's
You're
like the
Latin
football.
Americans, yeah.
It's like the football games are the same kind of atmospheres. They're crazy atmospheres. That's the English fans are enthusiastic. They get behind the people.
Mhm.
It's like it's a small country and they rally round, and it's just there's nothing quite like it. That's one thing we can say we have better than anywhere in the world. I do.
They identify with the athletes.
They get behind them, and it's almost like a fucking family. The English.
Yeah.
I mean, I've lived in America for 30 years, and I love America. I'm in the wrong place because New York I like a lot more.
Yeah.
But in LA, if you get a friend in LA, it's not normally a friend. You may get lucky if you keep one. In England, if you have a friend, they're your friend for life. I have friends I've known since I'm a kid. And New York's the same in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
LA is a different animal. I know it's the film business, but generally, but the English, they're very loyal. They're diehard fans, and the atmosphere is never going to be the same in Saudi or anywhere else. It's just part of that's one thing that's our culture.
And you know what? As long as we're getting good fights and a great card like the other night, when every fight was interesting, then without any sense of fillers, I don't really mind if it's a bit tepid and no one's drunk and coked up singing "Sweet Caroline."
What's amazing about England is if you get these fights in Saudi, right? You can walk through London or Liverpool or Manchester, and if it's one of the boys is out there, every pub, the whole city, the whole street will be lit up at home.
Yeah,
hanging off the rafters in cinemas. Like the fans are still behind us, even if they can't afford to be there. They're still watching in a pub, and the whole town's alive. So
I got to ask you both. It makes absolutely no sense to me. Like some of the things that happen over there in sports and when they're cheering and the energy, but why would you pick Sweet Caroline for a fight? Like
I wish I knew, Silk.
I love it.
I mean, is it just a bonding thing?
Do you know what?
It's an American. It's an American song. It's about a Southern girl.
I got a theory, right?
Can I say something?
Go on.
Okay. The whole reason for the song, right, before the big fight, is it puts everyone in a great mood, and they all have a laugh, and they all start singing, and it just lifts the spirit of the place. That's the whole reason for the song. Nothing more, nothing less. It's one of them songs everyone sings along to.
I reckon I know the night it started, that whole phenomenon, and I think it was completely organic. I could be wrong, but I doubt it, let's face it. Please. It's not a prediction, so why would I be wrong? So I'm pretty good on things that have already happened. But so anyway, when Ricky Burns fought Michael Katsidis at the XL Arena in, I believe it was 2011, okay? Could have been 2012, could have been, but either way, I think it was 11. suddenly they had this music in between rounds they'd never done before. Remember, Gary, they never played music in between the rounds. It was just, you could hear, you know, that would have been seemed like really cheesy and really inappropriate. So anyway, Gary Corcoran is making his professional debut. And in the corner is Mark Tibbs and Dean Powell, God rest his soul. And they're just about to give him instructions like they always do. And then suddenly over the tannoy, it's like, welcome to the house of fun. And you could see them look at each other and be like, what the fuck is this? And they could hardly hear themselves talking to him because of this loud music. And then Mike Goodall was playing the tunes. They'd obviously said, we're going to try this, Mike, like they do at the UFC. We're going to try and, you know, drag it into the 21st century and play music in between the rounds and all this. So Mike Goodall was playing all these songs, and he played Sweet Caroline that night, and everybody was really getting into it, including Derek Chisora. And I reckon he thought, there you go, this works. Boxing crowds, Sweet Caroline. I think I saw the birth of that phenomenon.
And it's just simply that it gives everyone a bit of a fun, a bit of a lift up. It's a prelude to it's going to kick off now. The crowd get involved. Everyone kind of sings the song, and then the event starts. It's simply a feel good. Here we go song.
But so I mean, I think it gets a little bit played out. For me, see, my thing, Gary, is I don't like something that happens the same and time again. And anything that is just always formulaic and gets a little safe, I guess I want to try and agitate that situation a little bit and buck the. That's why I don't dislike Adrian Broner. It's too obvious, and too many other people dislike Adrian Broner.
Well, let's hope that Sweet Caroline doesn't become an anthem, but it does its job as it does.
It has become an anthem.
Yes.
Every single fight they play the soccer games now too, right? So Neil Diamond, he still has the royalty.
I tell you what I really hate. I tell you what I really hate more than anything.
Go on.
So Michael Buffer, let's get ready to rumble.
Oh,
Brilliant. No, that he did it right. So great.
Yes.
Good luck. Now, all these cheesy new people trying to do the fight is now and all this.
Yeah.
Like,
are you ready or the time has come?
So embarrassing. Like, why do you fucking get a life or do something yourself?
That's what people do, emulation, since the beginning of time.
Thank you, Michael. Why not have your own style? I love Chuck Hull. Chuck Hull was very classy and crisp. Jimmy Lennon is his own guy. Yeah. And you know, remember that Nat Barso, Gary, was like, my lords, ladies and gentlemen. That was really cool as well.
Yeah.
So it's about being yourself, isn't it?
About being yourself. Don't copy Michael Buffer. There's only one of him. And he's a classy guy too. And so he come up with this thing. It caught on. Fantastic. That's his thing. Now everybody's trying to get their own thing. And it's so fucking... It just makes me laugh at them.
Nothing more cringeworthy than a fella in Gateshead doing a small hall professional boxing show trying to sound like Michael Buffer.
No, and they all do it. And it's pathetic. So
thank you.
We need a few more ring announcers.
You know what? I'm kind of like... I kind of waffle on that because I mean, look... First of all, Ready to Rumble, that's Muhammad Ali's saying, and Michael Buffer trademarked it and has turned it into it made millions and millions on a game, and he made millions and millions upon millions on commercials and live everything. Now he calls American football games, baseball games. Let's get ready to rumble for a baseball game. Let's get ready to rumble for a music concert. Paid tons and tons of money. And on that, from the saying of boxers, nothing's coming back. Nothing comes. Oh, excuse me. Yeah. nothing comes back to the fighter. I don't understand that. Like, is there something that I'm missing?
Why is Buffer so much more vastly, hideously rich than most of the fighters he's ever announced? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm really.
When all you've got to do is talk and talk into a microphone and look a bit sort of debonair.
I mean, why not like fighters get hurt? Support, like give something back. Like give something back to the sport.
Because I believe he's hideously rich, like crazy telephone number rich.
Of course, and just off that one saying alone, of course he's good looking. He's personable. He's a good looking guy. He's, you know what I mean.
His brother now is getting the same.
No one else could have done it.
It's
certainly his voice. You know what I mean. It's certainly his voice, and he has that whole thing going on. But the only reason why he got it is from fighters doing this, and why not? Share a little bit of that wealth. It won't hurt you. You're paying taxes anyway.
Throwing it out there, Michael Buffer, that is. Not Elijah Day. With Michael Elijah is throwing it out to Michael Buffer. Share the love.
Share the love, baby. I mean, maybe he does, and I don't know it, but I have heard nothing about it, and that would be really strange in boxing.
Yeah. But But I totally agree with Gary that all these imitators. That's the sad thing about life, isn't it? When you get, it's understandable, but it doesn't make it any more palatable that people try to emulate something rather than do your own thing. And I know that you're a big advocate of being yourself and doing your own thing as well, Silk. You know,
Yeah, but
at
I
all
mean
costs.
that's the way human nature. That's the way we are. Our natures as human beings. We
I
see
tell you
something,
what,
we do it ourselves, and we try to make it better than what it was. That's what
I
we
tell
do.
you what, with Silk's comment regarding Michael Buffett, if I was Michael Buffett, all due respect, I would definitely give something back to the game that's made me so rich.
Yeah.
And I would say, I would, if I was in a position that I would say, let's get a foundation for ex-fighters or whatever, and
Joe
it's
McClellan, Wilfred Benitez,
a
Yeah.
tax
Richard Coleman.
write-off. It's a fucking write-off. You don't even pay for it in the end. You write it
Yeah.
off your taxes. There should be a pension for fighters. There should be a foundation for medical, for people to put them in homes. These guys, they give their lives in essence. They come out of schools, they don't do education because they turn pro early. They when their career ends, they've really got nothing. And if they don't make it, and 1% make it, as you know, not many.
Yeah.
They commit to a sport that we all love, and at the end of it, they're forgotten. And it's
You know what, Michael Buffer, when he comes in and does a fight, he gets paid more than the fighter does. Like, that's incredible. Isn't that wild?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, does it? When you think about how broken certain things are in the game structurally and economically, and then you look at that situation, you're like, well, he's seen so many great champions come and go, and a whole bunch of them end up broke. I'm like say nobody's begrudging him his good fortune.
Listen,
No doubt he worked hard for it, but
I don't know about worked hard, but he's definitely talented. He kind of like he has this capacity about him. Like, people are attracted to him. You know what I mean? And I understand that. And he's got a voice like nobody else's, and he has a way in which he projects, which is he has a lot of magnetism. You know what I mean? But okay, so you've got that. But now, I don't know.
In his defense, if you was his lawyer, you'd say, he created a situation that no one's ever done. So he should get the rewards for it because he created everybody.
No one's saying he should give up 50-50 or even 80-20, but there should be some acknowledgement of boxing, that something that helped you make. That's the only way. And if you acknowledge it and you appreciate it, that's the way. In the future, something will always be given back. You're not just like James and the giant peach, and then the peach is up in the air, and these things keep eating it, and of course it's going to drop after a while. It's not gonna. They can't stay afloat. He's like, he's okay. I got my piece, and as long as I'm okay, it's, you know what I mean. I don't know if you're a part of the fight game, which he is obviously a part of boxing lore now, right? Like, when he comes on the stage and he says, let's get ready to rumble, and the place goes crazy, and
he does the weigh-ins as well, as Sid just mentioned.
Yeah, he does the weigh-ins as well, and and that's all he's saying anyway. We're gonna like rumble. That's just, you know what I mean? And he absolutely trademarked that. If anybody comes along and says they want to use rumble along with boxing, they can't do it anymore. Not even Muhammad Ali's kid could do it if he wanted to. He'd have to speak to Michael Buffer first. I think that's insane.
Yeah.
What's next for the fights coming up, Ben?
Okay, next in England next weekend, you've got Richard Riakporhe versus Chris Billam-Smith, the headliner for they're unifying two cruiserweight titles. I'll be going to the final press conference on Thursday, so I'll hopefully get us some good content for the channel. You've got
excuse me, I got you good content for the channel.
I knew we'd have to mention. I was just trying to talk about the question you asked me, but can we please have a shout out for the young man in the middle who's 14 years old, and he got us a very good interview with Bruce Silverglade, the legendary Gleason's gym owner. So shout out to Michael.
I haven't got you any content yet, have I?
No, you haven't yet, but you're.
And that was my main purpose coming into this, so I have to get my finger.
That wasn't your main purpose. Your main purpose was to be Gary Stretch and turn up more often than not, and you're fulfilling that contract right now.
Yes, exactly. You're definitely a cunt. Yes.
I was not so beyond tonight, and Ben called me 10 minutes before, and he said we've had a dropout, and I was in bed, and I said, Ben, I got you, boy. I got you.
Do you know what I like about this thing that we've done? I like a lot of things about it, but. And I've said before, all banter and conflict aside, and that's not going anywhere. He will annoy me next week or even tomorrow. I know that. But even allowing for that, there is not two ex-fighters on the planet I would rather be working with. This is the coolest show for me, as far as I'm concerned. And what I like
But-
about it is
but
we've done
Gary,
enough
guess
of these
what?
now.
Gary,
We've
if Sugar Ray Leonard and let me see, if Sugar Ray Leonard and showed up right now and said, "I want to do this show with you," Ben, he'd drop us in the water.
You know what? I actually don't think I would. It's that's how.
If Mike Tyson,
I don't want to get into
if
that.
Mike
Sugar
Tyson
Ray
and
would be a
Sugar
tough
Ray
call,
Leonard,
but
if
there ain't
Mike
nobody
Tyson and
else.
Sugar Ray Leonard called him up right now and said, "Ben, you're my man. You're going to be our anchor," you'd be like, "Listen,
So
dog."
cool. So cool.
Gary said he's always been an anchor, so that doesn't surprise me. Listen, but
Harry,
what I was going to say,
he did a bit of modelling. He can't fight.
yeah. But
That's
what I was going to say was that what I'm glad about this project as well is we've done enough of these now, and we have enough people watching that we can't just let this fizzle out now. Because if somebody stopped or it ceased to be a thing, people would say, whatever happened to that? Because we've done too many of them now to turn back without creating a bit of a hole, where we used to be.
We're
Which is
in
kind of
too
cool.
deep, Ben. We're in
I'm
too
Yeah, do you know what I'm
with that.
saying?
I'm okay with
Bit like
that.
Phil Collins, right?
Yeah.
But
So
what were we saying? What else were we saying? Yes, other fights coming up on 15th. I believe you've got. Is it Gervonta Davis versus Gervonta Davis and Frank Martin? Is it next?
that's an interesting one. I'm not on Davis at this point. I'm not sure yet, but I'm not.
Have you
I'm
seen
on,
him fight? Have you
I'm
seen
on
him?
the fence. I'd say another interesting one is
Go on.
the Johnny Fisher fight.
Yeah, Johnny Fisher versus Alan Babbage. Yeah, that's interesting.
Never heard of him.
The Savage Babbage, who you need. Do you think Silk needs to get locked into boxing outside of the States a bit more, Gary?
Well, if it's on a global level, is this a title fight? A world title fight?
Well,
No,
no,
it's
but
a
not
young-
every.
Okay.
It's a young
There are still
British
things that
heavyweight
matter.
prospect. A
Are
young
they
kid.
both rated in the world?
It's to be honest, it's hard to find a fighter that's not world rated today. Quite honestly.
Okay, but are they? Are they?
So Johnny Fish is a young heavyweight who's just coming into title contention, at whatever level. He's a young prospect.
And Babbage is a former Bridgerweight champ, right, or challenger?
Yeah, and Babbage
What's
is
a
a
Bridgerweight?
character who's like a caveman, who's like he's a real.
What's a
fighter.
Bridgerweight?
Have you not heard of that division, Silk? It's the division between heavyweight and cruiserweight that they invented a few years ago. About 3 years ago, honestly, God.
Cruiserweight and heavy. It wasn't light heavyweight. Between light heavyweight and heavyweight, it was cruiserweight.
Yeah, well, no. Now they've got a division between heavyweight and cruiserweight,
Well,
and the limit is
what's the weight
224
difference?
pounds.
How much?
224 pounds.
That's
So Usyk could
Bridgerweight.
go down and unify that too.
Oh my god! These guys, I need to take them to school. They need to understand that weight doesn't matter. I don't know why they keep doing that.
You say it doesn't matter, but that is too simplistic a view of the situation, I feel. And I think because the thing is, what you do, Silk, is you pick one situation where a smaller guy wins and go, see, I told you, and Gary, it means nothing. That's one example. And you'll wait for Fury Usyk to prove your point. Why didn't you claim you were right when Roy Jones beat John Ruiz? We already knew that. What we're saying, am I right, Gary, that it is a factor. You weigh it in the mix with all the other factors. Size.
I'm saying listen, it mattered. It didn't matter with Jones and Ruiz because Jones didn't fight the type of fight, whereas Ruiz would use his weight advantage on him. It's not wrestling. I sort of keep telling you, it's boxing.
I say that, but it's different getting hit by a bigger guy, a bigger, stronger guy. It is different getting hit by. If you're sparring with like if you're a middleweight and you're sparring with a junior featherweight,
of course you're getting hit by a
than
bigger guy, but if you have the defensive attributes and you have mobility and you have the ability to make a guy miss, then that gives him, yes, he's a power puncher to you. Just like, hey, listen, it's no different than if you were a kid going in there and you're fighting John Mugabe or Tommy Hearns. And it's like, don't get hit because it's the same thing. Whether that man is 225 pounds or whether he's 160 pounds, he still will put your lights out if you get hit by him. Same thing, one punch, doesn't matter.
So why do they have weight divisions then? Why do they not just get rid of all of them and just say it's a free-for-all?
Well, they used to do that, right? They used to.
Yeah, they did in the 1719s, like the early 1700s, like Gary was just alluding to when we invented boxing here, and that was a barbaric time.
There were advantages and disadvantages. if you were a smaller car that knew how to take curves, you
But
fought.
still, let's look at let's go
You fought in the
extreme.
Grand Prix. You fought in the Grand Prix. But if you were a long car with a big engine, you did drag racing. You did a straightaway. You know what I mean? It's like
Still, let's just go extreme. Would Mayweather have had his career? Would Sugar Ray Leonard have had his career if he fought
Foreman.
people like Lennox Lewis, Roy Jones, Tommy Hearns, Marvin Hagler? Would Pacquiao have had a chance against Hagler? Pacquiao was a better fighter than Hagler.
Whoa. You think so?
I think as an all-round fighter, yes.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
No, Hagler was an incredible fighter, but he didn't have
Not as all round good as Mayweather. You saying?
No, he said not as good as Pacquiao.
Oh, right.
Hagler was not in Mayweather's league. No.
Hagler was not in Mayweather's league. You said
that's what he just said. Yeah, that is the statement.
No, not as an all-round fighter. No, and I'm a massive fan.
I would say
no,
Hagler was more versatile.
Marvin Hagler's offense was considerably light years better.
And he could do it out of both stances too. I never saw Floyd do that. So it's debatable, Gary. I know why you said it, and
I
I'm not disagreeing with you,
understand,
Gary.
but okay, but let's just say you can't put Hagler in with Lennox. Can't do it. It's too small.
You can't. You're right. You cannot. And yet, do you know what's odd?
Also, come on. Can't do it.
Do you know what's odd, though? Do you know what's odd that puts a spanner in the works? I think about this a lot, as you know. When people talk about Harry Greb, and they say he did this and that and the other, and especially when I was a bit more skeptical about that because you couldn't see him, I was like, yeah, I doubt it. And then I was like, I swear to God, Marvin Hagler would have sliced Greb to pieces. Then I think, okay, maybe so. But then I think, can you imagine Hagler beating Gene Tunney? And I struggle to imagine that. Even Tunney as a 1920s heavyweight looked pretty good to me on film in the Dempsey fights, at least. So then I think, well, imagine Hagler beating a heavyweight champion of his era, and it's kind of hard to imagine that. But that's something that Harry Greb did. I'm not trying to start a Harry Greb debate. I'm just saying that it is.
Everyone's going about Hagler. He was incredible, but he got beat and Vito Antuofermo.
He didn't.
Hang on.
He was okay. Minter beat him.
He didn't get beat. He drew the fight.
Minter did not beat Marvin.
Minter destroyed Antuofermo. He beat him
the second time he did, yeah.
But okay, but you just gonna say
you have to understand they fight certain types of fighting style.
Hagler was amazing at everything, but
very versatile, more
amazing. I'm a massive Hagler fan, but I'm just saying weights. If you put Pacquiao, you can't put Pacquiao in with Hagler at 140 at 160. You can't do it. You can't put Mayweather in with Hagler. It's too small. But Mayweather,
he wouldn't have put himself in with him.
Dominant in his weight category, but he can't fight Hagler. Why? Weight too big.
Mayweather would never have gone anywhere near Hagler. He'd have sorted that for you. He would not have gone in with him.
No, but what I'm saying is, look how dominant Mayweather's been at his weight. But if you
different weights, Gary. To be fair, different weights.
Whatever weights, but you can't go
a lot of them.
When you step up to 3-4 weights above. It's a big issue.
I agree with you, Gary. He is a weight division denier.
Guys,
why? Because
I'm like this. Boxing is like fencing, right? It's not like
more physical than that.
It's not like
more physical than that.
It's not like wrestling. It is like fencing. So it's about me putting my fist on your scoring point on your body.
Yes, and you can't put your fist on me.
Grabbing and wrestling and all the rest of that kind of stuff. So I don't know why the boxing rules changed. And at one point they had no divisions. Then all of a sudden they put divisions.
Are you seriously suggesting we shouldn't have divisions?
I'm trying to get a piece of the history here, and you're not working with me. I'm saying,
okay, let me work with you then.
At one point they started to. At one point, smaller fighters did beat bigger fighters, did they not?
Okay.
They did. They always have done.
One second, Ben.
They always have done. Why?
I tell you a fighter you love. You like Tank, right?
Yeah.
Tank cannot in his life ever fight a super middleweight, a junior light heavyweight, a heavyweight. He just can't do it. Why? Too small. It's too small, sir.
And the problem arises, Silk, when,
I love
when the
Tank.
skill
He
levels
can't-
are equal, more or less. That's when you
He
get the problem.
can't fight these big guys. He's just too small. So, and if he hit him, he wouldn't affect him at all.
He would. He certainly would
not
have.
affect a
Yes, he
heavyweight.
would. Absolutely. Absolutely.
No.
100% he would.
If he
I mean-
traded with a heavyweight, he'd get booked for fucking
Oh, if he
speed.
traded with him, yes. But if he used his boxing,
Why?
if you
you think
boxing
you really
intelligence-
believe Tank could beat a heavyweight of
do
world
I
class?
think Tank can? Yeah, I think he has the ability to.
He'd
Yes.
have to be a woeful heavyweight, a white-collar heavyweight he'd have to be. He couldn't be a world-class heavyweight.
Silk,
He's
I
heavyweight
understand
here.
your-
Okay, let me ask you something. If Tank hit Deontay Wilder on the chin, do you think he would hurt him?
If my girlfriend hit
Julie.
Deontay Wilder on
I'm
the
just
chin,
asking you one question.
Not on
my
Julie, no.
girlfriend hit Deontay Wilder on his chin at this rate, he'd be unconscious.
What, you mean the Wilder we got now?
The Wilder we got,
I'm
we just
saying any
saw.
Deontay Wilder.
By
At
the
any-
way, the
At
shot.
any point, he
the
hit
shot
Deontay Wilder on the chin.
By the way, the shot that he turned away from before he got hit from behind, if you watch it in slow motion, it just misses him. It skims his nose. Have you seen it? It's been slowed down
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Saying he took a dive. He didn't take a dive. It may have been a terrible punch because it hit right on the nose,
Gunshot.
right? But it was not a knockout punch at all. It missed him.
No,
And
I
then he
don't-
got caught. Then he got caught from behind, and he was out. And not even the shot that hit him from behind was that hard.
Oh yeah.
Let's
it
not
was.
put
That was
Wilder
the
into
first-
the equation. Put
Well,
Tank
you're
in.
asking what would happen if Gervonta Davis hit Deontay Wilder, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I think if Wilder found out about it, there'd be trouble.
I think he would if he got up step ladders and climbed up
Yeah.
to hit him, possibly.
But you're talking about range that he couldn't. Like if you're saying because he's so tall,
Size.
you're saying.
Height.
Are you saying mass or you're saying height? Well,
I'm
now
saying size, which comes from height, reach, power, weight, size.
And the thing is, Silk, you think heavier gloves make you more likely to knock someone out. So that's always struck me as a contradiction to this other credo
What's that?
the fact that you think the bigger gloves are more likely to cause a concussion. That seems to be a contradiction in your
I'm
argument.
going to correct. I'll correct Silk on that too. The correct weight of glove to knock someone out most effectively will be big enough to protect the hand and wrap it well. Economically,
small enough.
No bigger than it should be, no smaller. Just a nice, tight, secure glove that
not a big pillow
that compacts the hand to the degree that you get full force without fear of breaking your hand. That is the punch that will knock you out more than any bigger glove, smaller glove. Just the right and about a 10-ounce glove, 8-ounce glove, perfect.
It's all about no, guys. It's all about the density of the glove. You're right. It is the way it's packed. It's the density of the glove. It's the density of your fist. If you have a heavier, thicker fist, if you cut my thing off here, my fist off here, and weighed it, how much my bald fist and the density of it, how much that weighs, is going to play a part in what kind of damage I'm going to do when I hit somebody. That right here, this fist right here, how much this weighs and what speed I can get it to when it hits you, that's going to tell you punching power. And it doesn't matter what weight division you are in, it does not matter.
So, Julian McGowan,
if I turn my body into a punch, I weigh 165 pounds, and I can get my whole 165 pounds behind a punch. Guess what? Someone is definitely going to shoot. If you hit a man with a 165-pound bar on the mouth, what's going to happen?
You know what, Silk?
Yes.
What happens if you weigh that much and you hit like a body belt with that power? You turn into a world champion, according to the caption, anyway.
Look, we've all had like, I've knocked out guys who are 200, 300-pound bodybuilders, a doorman. I've done it, right? Everyone has. It's different when you're boxing a guy who's a bigger. Like when I went up to Eubanks to fight Eubanks, I felt a massive difference to junior.
You were stronger, right? You'd gone up in weight. You weren't like middleweight anymore.
It
and
was
you
a
felt
much
stronger,
more
right?
different kettle of fish. It was a much more.
But it was a different kettle of fish in terms of ability as well. His ability.
No, it wasn't the ability.
Gary had all the ability.
No, I'm not saying Gary didn't have equal ability or the same ability, or
what I'm saying.
I'm just saying.
What I'm saying
has more ability than
no. But what I'm saying is, so when I fought smaller guys, they didn't have to be as much aware, because a shot from Eubanks is much worse than a welterweight, junior middleweight shot. It's different.
How
The
much of
sheer
that is
density of him, the size of him, the way he picked me up and manhandled me, the weight, the strength.
So it's not just like fencing, is it?
No, because fencing is you're using a foreign object. Boxing, we're using our weight, and when our weight is much less.
Boxing is the sport of hit. If boxing is the sport of hit and not get hit, then they are pretty much similar.
But size
But it's
and
more
weight
physical, and it gets physical.
When size and weight come into it, it's like Deontay Wilder and Tank Davis. It would be difficult for Tank to reach Deontay Wilder.
Okay, so then obviously Mike Tyson at 5'10", forget about it. Then he'll never.
But he was 220 pounds. He was not.
Do you dispute what Julian McGowan has said when he says you exceptions to rules? You can't give weight when the skill sets are. You can give weight when the skill sets are different. But Ray Leonard would have been slaughtered by a cruiserweight Holyfield.
Holyfield, I mean, again, styles make fights too. Yeah, there's a little bit of not necessarily styles make fights, but abilities make fights. And the kind of he would be a bad matchup. Holyfield would be a bad matchup for Leonard, but Leonard would get off on a Holyfield too. Trust me.
He's Gary. He's deliberately
there's no way in hell.
Nothing to do with
if you're talking about Sugar Ray Leonard, world welterweight champion, or Sugar Ray Leonard when he's fighting Marvin Hagler, if you're talking to me about that Sugar Ray Leonard and getting in the ring against the best Holyfield, maybe the best Holyfield does win in the end or stop him, whatever. But Sugar Ray is definitely unloading an arsenal on him.
Let me say this: like Canelo now, I'm worried about Crawford simply on the size, but I think Crawford's good enough, and I think Canelo's not naturally that massive, anyways. What did he turn pro at, Canelo? What weight?
Well, 147, didn't he?
So he's not, and he was not a baby. So he was pretty much a 147, 154, 160 guy. Crawford's got a decent frame. There's a chance he beats Canelo. But when a kid like Pacquiao fights someone like Tommy Hearns, no matter how skillful Pacquiao, he's just not big enough.
Joe's got a great one here. Why did Tommy Loughran, one of the most legendarily skilled light heavyweights in history, certainly by the contemporary newspaper accounts, why couldn't he beat Primo Carnera, who's regarded as one of the most technically woeful world heavyweight champions of all time?
Who knows? It could be psychological. Maybe the guy has maybe he does believe. Maybe he believes like you guys believe that.
All right. So in your day, when you were fighting the Tommy Hearns caliber fighters, look at the welterweights of the time who were ruling the roost. You would have destroyed them.
When I think about it, no, because I think I tried. My fight was very much on skills. So yes, I would.
What about if you fought a light welterweight, welterweight world champion?
Yes, you're right. But my primitive mind would think that because at that time, because I'm like, well, I'm bigger than him, so I have to apply. I will impose myself upon him physically because I am that. But you and I and Ben, you've been in the gym more than enough times to see a smaller fighter thump the hell out of a bigger fighter.
Of course we've seen it. Of course we've seen it.
And an exceptional bigger fighter. But this guy's putting it on him still. And if it changes in a fight, it could be any number of reasons. It could be a psychological issue.
You just give your whole argument away. You said I would impose my size and weight on him.
Listen to this one, Gary.
I'm saying psychologically. That's what I'm saying psychologically. I would think that would be my
psychologically. Physically, you would bully him. Physically, you would bully him.
How about this one? Hit a light feedback.
About physically.
If I fought a guy who weighed fucking 100 pounds, I'd just pick him up and throw him around the fucking corner.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's what you would do until he puts one on your chin, and then you'd be like, "Whoa!"
If he put one on my chin, maybe I would take it better than if Lennox put it on my chin.
Hit a light speed bag for 3 minutes, push it back. Hit a jumbo heavy bag, you can't move it. Push it. See how quickly you
exactly.
It's physics.
No one's denying that when you have to push it, lift it, all the rest of those things, that's different. They have weight divisions for wrestling for a reason. You Greco-Roman, Olympic style wrestling.
But erroneously so in boxing, yes.
You grab on each other. It's not about striking. It's about grabbing, wrestling, moving, and that's hard. Yes. So if I have to fight Klitschko and I have to wrestle him, and I have to, or Fury.
Who's the best fight? Who's the best fighter?
This guy laying all over me and pushing me all over the place. Hell yeah, I'm going to be tired.
Who's the better fighter in your opinion? in history, who would you say is the better fighter? Sugar Ray Leonard
Sugar Ray Leonard.
or
Sugar Ray.
Lennox Lewis?
Sugar Ray.
If you had to
Definitely.
put your house on a fight between Sugar Ray Leonard at welterweight
Lewis.
fighting Lennox Lewis, who would win?
Well, I don't know if that's
Come
a
on.
fair comparison, but if you were to say, if you
No,
were to
Leonard at welterweight in his prime, or Duran in his prime fighting
Lennox Lewis.
Lennox Lewis, who would win? You got to put your house on it. Be honest.
Okay, now
Why you even? Why you have to think about it?
Let's dissect the question.
Good. Why do you have to think about it? Weight and size.
Yeah, it's not a yes or no. We'd have to dissect the question. I mean,
No. It's weight and size.
it's weight and size. It's about skills.
All of a sudden, Lennox
Yeah,
comes in.
the safe money would be on Lennox Lewis, yes, but if Sugar
Why?
Why?
Because he's bigger and he's heavyweight. End of.
I don't know if Sugar Ray
He's
is
not
like,
going to admit that. He won't even say, okay, obviously at that point, yes.
It's fencing.
You
It's
can
fencing.
mention King fucking Kong and he's going to say, well, you know, a different kind of attribute.
No,
He's
no,
not going to.
I'm absolutely willing to give it to you. No, I'm absolutely willing to give you that victory.
Let's get Chavez in his prime, who bullied and outdogged
Well,
everyone.
we're talking about styles, right?
Put him in against
We're talking
Larry
about weight.
Holmes.
We're talking about
Put him in against Larry Holmes.
Put who in against Larry Holmes?
Julian made the point as well. He said that Ricky Hatton couldn't bully people at welterweight even. Even one weight was a bit too much for him, and his prime weight was 140, and that was that. Donald Curry wasn't the stronger physical guy at 154 that he had been at 147. He just wasn't.
No, bro, come on now. That's not true. Donald Curry was never a physical phenom at welterweight either. He was an incredible technician. He was an incredible technician.
He said his own words. He said, "I feel I'm physically stronger than those guys at welterweight." And as soon as he moved it to light middle, he said, "It's different now. I've got to box a bit more. I've got to box a bit more."
Well, that's maybe that's what
his belief system was different to yours, as is the vast majority of fighters in history. That's what it is. It doesn't make you wrong.
You know what? Though there is plenty of time for people to change. So you guys,
there is, yeah. He just won't budge, Gary. He won't have it.
No, is that I?
No, Ben. I think it's.
Look at this. Alexis Arguello loses to Juan Roldan.
Yeah.
No way. No way.
Is that a dream fight for next week? Friday?
Well, that's what Julian just said. Alexis Arguello loses to Juan Roldan. No way. Alexis Arguello is way too highly skilled. You can call it what you will. I'm sorry. I would definitely bet your money on that fight, Gary.
What I'm going to say is this, Silk.
Gary, do you believe Alexis Arguello would lose to Juan Roldan?
No.
Thank you. Okay.
But
it has nothing to do with size, right?
No, but what I'm saying, if you get extraordinary fighter against extraordinary fight, like an extraordinary fighter can beat bigger guys,
like Napoles versus Monzon,
because it's extraordinary. But if you get an extraordinary fighter against an extraordinary fighter, two massive weights,
yeah,
he loses.
I guess all things being the same, and if there's one thing that's strikingly bigger than, more obvious than the other, then yeah, that could be the truth. But if a fighter, if a fighter that didn't have as many of the attributes you were talking about, or power and size, or whatever it is, then I think, or he knows his game, his skill, his ability really well.
I'll give you an example. I've sparred with heavyweights in the gym, so the very average heavyweights, like local kids, and I would play with them. And I was a junior middleweight, no problem. However, even though I would play with them and you know, school them in many ways, I also felt if it was 12 rounds, could I keep this up? And eventually, would he get to me? Now, if I was fighting a junior middleweight, it wouldn't be a concern. But the heavyweight, it's a concern because the weight will start to impose on me later. Unless
if you were fighting.
But I'm talking about very average guys, not world class heavyweight.
No, but if you're fighting the type of fight that would cause you to have to physically strain yourself, push him off, you know, fight him in the clinches or all the rest of that kind of stuff, get out of a clinch, you know what I mean? That consistent in your face pressure pushing
The
you.
only way I can fight a heavyweight is keep
Yeah.
him off me. The only way I can fight a heavyweight is keep him off me because the size and weight matters. I've got to
And
keep
movement.
him. I can't
And
allow
movement.
him to use the size and weight.
Well, listen. So I mean, it's very. If you have the defensive attributes, it's not very hard to keep a
It's
man.
not
off.
hard for 1 round, 2 rounds, 3 rounds, 4 rounds. But when it gets to 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, it does come into play.
Robinson versus Maxim,
It's
right?
mentioned.
Ray Robinson versus Joey Maxim. Similar scenario.
Ben, I have to leave.
No worries. No
I'll
worries,
leave.
Gary.
I'll let you.
I'll do.
He's leaving with the. You guys are leaving with the tail between your legs. Did I put
No,
you
I'll
in the
stay. I'll
tail?
stay to have it with you for another 5
No,
minutes.
I won that battle. I leave. I'll sleep in peace.
Good seeing you, Gary.
Love you guys. I'll see
Next
you
week.
soon.
All right. Love you too.
Bye.
Ciao.
Yeah. Okay. And that's good night from him, as they used to say. The two Ronnies. Yeah, I don't know, Sylvia. Nothing if not consistent. I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
No, I just.
Have you ever been?
Skills? But Ben, skills are the most important.
You know, you're preaching to the converted with that. You know, I understand exactly what you mean about skills. Of course, listen. I could personally, even now, I could mug off many a much bigger boxer, a guy with gloves on who's done a bit of boxing, whatever it is. You know, if he's a white collar or you're a novice amateur or something. You know, there's plenty of ones even at this age. I could still, you know, control them because they don't know enough to be able to do anything about it. But it is harder comparing. If you're boxing a really good middleweight, it's a little harder than it's boxing a really good
I'm
welterweight.
taking Gervonta Davis over Dillian White. If they got into the ring right now, I'm telling you, I'm going with Gervonta Davis.
On
And
points.
And you?
I'd have to go with Dylan. I think. I mean, the thing is, maybe it depends how many rounds it is. I mean, I think Tank could beat him over maybe 4 or 6 or something. But
And you don't think he'd hurt him?
not so as you notice. No.
Wow. Oh, wow. That's crazy. I mean, I'm stupefied. He absolutely would hurt him. You would see him wobble and get dropped. And I'm not just saying him. No, I'm not picking on Dillian. I'm talking about any heavyweight that kid knows that he can get a clean shot on is going to feel it.
Do you know the way in the amateurs, coaches, they guard the weight thing like a hawk. Like, yeah, this is your weight, son. You're not going in that one, which is like a teaspoon over that one. You know, even with the juniors, they're 11-year-olds and 12-year-olds, and they're really, really guarded and religious about weight. That this is the weight you're boxing at, not that one. You can't box him. Do you know what I mean? Do you think that's all bogus, and they should just let the kids be whatever?
You know,
because they do
really.
Listen,
it's the law of this. The way it's the way things are. Listen, I'm training with a kid right now, right? I'm training Blue, and getting him in the right weight division makes sense, right? Because that's what everyone's asking you to do. That's what you do.
You know, and some of these kids really do. They're half killing themselves to make weight, which I don't agree with. But my point in this particular context was that they think it really matters that much. And, you know, you do get, like I say, whatever you want to say, Ricky Hatton wasn't the same guy at welterweight that he had been at 140. But you say, I get this, you say there might be another reason for that. There might be other reasons. It could be psychological. It could be his lifestyle. It could just be organically the timeline of his career, which happens to, you know, you're taking these facts to prove one argument, but it might not be the case. But I think, you know, so
I'm sure he stumped many a welterweight, and I'm sure he stumped many a middleweight and even super middleweight, and I would even go up to light heavyweight in the gym.
Well, we know that in the gym, because there's different levels of fighters, isn't there? That's the thing. There's different levels in the gym, so you can mix it up.
Respectable fighters in the gym. I mean, whether they seize up their abilities once they get in front of the lights is another thing altogether. But
yeah.
But I'm just saying. So I mean, sometimes you'll fight guys that are in the gym that are better than guys that you're going to fight on TV anyway. Yeah. they're gym fighters, and they're damn good fighters in the gym.
Well, it's interesting when you get that. I remember there was an article in Ring Magazine in the 80s. It was called it was called Gym Champs, and it was talking about that phenomenon of people who were brilliant in the gym, but never seemed to be able to replicate that form under the lights, or they didn't have a career that showcased that. You know, you always talk about that guy Johnny Banks Walker. You said was just such a monster in the gym, but you
Yeah.
said but he had like a journeyman record, and you never quite figured it out. But then, do you know what? There was a guy called John Douglas at Gleason's gym when I was training there 20 years ago, and he was nobody's fool at all in the gym. He was really talented. He was really tough. But he had like 4 wins and about 9 losses, something like
Yeah.
that, you know.
Yeah. They're around, and they're probably still around.
But you know what I didn't understand then, because this was 20 odd years ago, 2003, when I was sparring him, and I thought he was really, really good fighter, but he'd lost way more than he'd won.
Yeah.
One thing I didn't quite get at that point, but I would learn it very soon afterwards, was that was the industry that maybe did that to John Douglas, because I didn't understand quite then when I was coming back into boxing after quite a hiatus. The things I understand now, which is you can't always look at a guy's record because it doesn't tell a story because it's about the opportunities he gets. The one thing American fans on Facebook and all that don't seem to understand, they'll look at a guy like a guy say called Fonz Alexander over here, who's got like about 8 wins and about 167 losses, and they say he's so bad, surely they should take his license from him. They don't realize he's playing the game. You know what I mean? They don't get it.
Yeah.
He knows what he's doing.
And you know what? You take any individual that isn't a professional boxer and put him in the ring with them.
Yeah.
He'd improve his win category percentage really fast.
Danny Graham sparred with John Douglas like I did, and he says JD put it on me first day I walked into Gleason's. Yeah, it was you know, what's Ellen saying? Ellen says I got really pissed off with Eddie Hearn, who was trying when Eddie Hearn spends time publicly mocking. What's the context here, Ellen?
I think it goes back to the Anthony Joshua statement.
Maybe. I didn't think Ellen had been on that long, but maybe she has. But you know, well, we didn't get the guest we were supposed to have. We seem to have a few false starts with David King Estrada, but I thought it was a pretty good show tonight. It was entertaining from my perspective.
Interesting convo. Always nice to have opinions.
And I can be expecting, I imagine, this interview you did with Bruce Silverglade soon, so I'll put it on the channel for our fans to watch.
I think it already got sent to you, no?
Hopefully, yeah. I'll have a look at my emails and
let me know if it doesn't, then I'll resend it.
Absolutely. Listen, those of you who watched us, thanks for your support as ever. We really appreciate your engagement and the fact that we're building this little show. We're glad that we have a diehard audience who seem to refuse to miss it on Fridays and Sundays. So if there's anything you can do to help spread the word, get us more subscribers. I don't like asking for likes, but I think likes are actually important. The more likes you've got on your channel, totally, I think it gives you some more traction in this whole kind of netherworld that we don't quite understand, Silk. So please like us, right? I don't like asking to be liked, but we have to, Silk. It's just the way it is. We have to be begged to be liked. So, guys, what's going to say? There's a couple of comments there, but if I keep taking them, we're going to be here all day.
Well,
so let's just say.
Quick answer. Go ahead.
Go on. No,
go ahead. Quick questions.
Well, that's not a question here, but Danny says, I remember the first day I walked into Gleason's on Front Street. It was like walking into Rocky 3. I remember thinking that.
Yeah. In fact, we were talking about that with Bruce. We were talking about the area and how dilapidated it was and how.
Yeah.
And he talked about actually how he got out to Gleason's and what it felt like when they were first there. It was interesting.
Yeah. It was cool, and it was. I've said this before, but one thing that's kind of novel is being a white guy at Gleason's as well. When you're there for a while and you spar with people, because you end up there's a novelty attached to being the white guy, because they just a lot of the time the gym is so black and Hispanic. If you can fight and you happen to be pale, they think that's kind of cool, because they're not used to it.
No, it's true. No, it's absolutely true. Like I know that. I've done the same thing when I'm looking at the gym and I see this white kid that's like Charlie White Lightning Brown. Remember him? And I you're like, damn, that kid he's flies.
It's fly.
It's like when you have like a Caucasian soul singer and you're like, damn, okay.
That was what it was with me. In particular, that was the kind of novelty, because it's like a kind of the movement and dancing and stuff, and they'd be like, well, that's not somebody those guys. The one guy said, you don't fight like a white guy, B. And that's just, it's cool.
Yeah, because they're just preconceptions.
But
Anyway,
Julian's got great last word.
Thank you very much, Julian, for your questions and understanding.
Yeah, exactly. He says physicality is a huge part of boxing. You guys know that. It's the law of mask, but great show regardless. Yeah. So, Bruce is brilliant. Yeah, Bruce. He's talking about Bruce Silverglade there. So I look forward to seeing what you talked about, Silk. In the meantime, so we're talking a week as always, and I'll see you in the next place.
Ciao.
Thank you all.